Operation Weserübung, also known as Germany's assault on Denmark and Norway during the Second World War, which started on April 9th, and the opening operation of the Norwegian campaign. And today we are going to see how did it happen. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became the new German Chancellor, being appointed by Paul von Hindenburg, and after his death became the supreme leader of Germany with the title of Führer. With his new army, he annexed Austria and half of Czechoslovakia from 1938 to 1939, and he wanted even more dominance in that portion of Europe. In the spring of 1939, the British Admiralty began to view Scandinavia as a potential theatre of war in a future conflict with the Germans. The British believed that the First World War will repeat. Germany was dependent of neutral Sweden's iron ore import that was major in their industry, which was exported through neutral Norway, and the British considered a naval blockade through the Norwegian port of Narvik. Germany and the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression treaty determining their sphere of influence in Europe, and the first victim would be Poland. On September 1st, both German and Soviet troops crossed the border and invaded Poland. In return, UK and France declared war on Germany. After the Polish defeat, a period known as Phony War began between Germany and the Franco-British alliance, giving Germany time to build its military. In October 1939, the chief of German Kriegsmarine, Grand Admiral Erich Raeder, held a meeting with Adolf Hitler about the danger posed by potential British bases in Norway and the possibility of seizing those bases. The Navy argued that the possession of Norway would serve as a submarine platform. Towards the end of November 1939, Winston Churchill, a new member of the British War Cabinet, proposed the mining of Norwegian water in Operation Wilfred. That would force the ore transports to travel through the open waters of the North Sea, where the Royal Navy could intercept them. They called this plan as Operation Wilfred. That could provoke an occupation of Norway by Germany that would force the British to occupy Norway. In November 1939, the Winter War between the Soviet Union and Finland began, and Churchill proposed the mining scheme that was denied once again. In December 1939, UK and France began serious planning for sending aid to Finland. Their plan called for a force to land in Narvik, the main port for iron exports, and take control of Malmbanan railway line from Narvik to Luleå in Sweden on the shore of the Gulf of Bothnia. Following a meeting with Vidkun Quisling from Norway on December 14, Hitler turned his attention to the north. Convinced of the threat posed by Allies to the iron ore supply, Hitler ordered the Armed Forces High Command to begin preliminary plans that called for an army division. Between December 14th and 19, the Kriegsmarine developed an expanded version of their plan. It decided on two key factors: surprise and speed. The new plan called for full army corps, and the main targets were populated cities like Oslo, Bergen, Narvik, Troms, Trondheim, and many more. On February 21, 1940, command of the operation was given to General Nikolaus von Falkenhorst. He had fought in Finland during the First World War and was familiar with Arctic warfare, but he would have command of only the ground forces, despite Hitler's desire to have a unified command. The final plan was codenamed Operation Weserübung on January 27, 1940. The ground forces would be the 21st Army Corps, including the 3rd Mountain Division and 5 infantry divisions. None of the latter had yet been tested in battle. Almost all U-boat operations in the Atlantic were to be stopped for the submarines to aid in the operation. All available submarines, including some training boats, were used as part of Operation Hartmut in support of Operation Weserübung. The plan was to invade Norway and gain control of the Danish airspace through diplomatic means, but on March 1st, Hitler changed his directive and wanted to invade both Denmark and Norway. In February, the Royal Navy destroyer Hans Karsak boarded the German ship Altmark in the Norwegian waters. The Altmark rescued British prisoners of war which violated Norwegian neutrality, and Hitler noticed this action. On March 12, the United Kingdom decided to send an expeditionary force to Norway just as the Winter War was winding down. The expeditionary force began boarding on March 13, but it was recalled and the operation cancelled because of the end of the Winter War. The first German ship set sail for the invasion on April 3rd. 2 days later, the Operation Wilfred was put in action and the minefields were laid on April 8th. On April 9th, the German invasion was underway and Plan 4 was promptly started by the British. Strategically, Denmark's importance to Germany was as a staging area for operations in Norway. Considering its status as a minor nation bordering Germany, it was also seen as a country that would have to fall at some point. At 4 AM on April 9th, the German ambassador to Denmark called for a meeting with the Danish foreign minister, declaring that German troops were moving in to occupy Denmark for protection against the Franco-British alliance. The German ambassador demanded a cease to the Danish resistance and that the contact would be made between German-Danish authorities. If demands weren't accepted, the Luftwaffe would bomb Copenhagen. As the German demands were communicated, the first German advances had already been made, with forces landing by ferry in Gedser at 3:55 and moving north. German Fallschirmjäger paratrooper units had made unopposed landings and taken 2 airfields at Aalborg and the Storsten Bridge. At 4:20 am, a reinforced battalion of German infantrymen of the 308th Regiment landed in Copenhagen harbour and moved towards Amalienborg Palace to capture the royal family, who had been informed about the invasion. At 5:25, 2 squadrons of German Messerschmitt Bf 110 attacked Wels airfield on Zealand and neutralised Danish Army Air Service. Despite Danish anti-aircraft fire, the German fighters destroyed 10 Danish aircrafts and seriously damaged another 14. Faced with explicit threat of the Luftwaffe bombing the civilian population of Copenhagen, the Danish king and government capitulated at 6 o'clock in exchange of retaining political independence, ending the invasion in less than 6 hours. The operation's military headquarters was Hotel Esplanade in Hamburg, where orders were given to, among others, the air units involved in the invasion. Norway was important to Germany for 2 main reasons, one being a naval base for U-boats and to secure shipments of iron ore from Sweden through the port of Narvik. Under the command of Nicholas von Falkenhorst, the 21st Army Corps targeted to invade Norway contained the following main units: 69th Infantry Division, alongside the 163rd, 181st, 196th, 214th Infantry Division and the 3rd Mountain Divisions. The initial invasion force was transported in several groups by ships of the Kriegsmarine. Shortly after the noon on 8 April, the clandestine German troopship SS Rio de Janeiro was sunk of Lillesand by the Polish submarino RP Oars, part of the Royal Navy, and the news reached Berlin. Late in the evening of April 8th, the Norwegian guard vessel POL 3rd was destroyed by a German vessel. At 7:06 p.m, 5 Norwegian fighters were sent into battle to combat a wave of enemy planes. German airborne troops landed at the Oslo Airport, Fornebu, Kristiansand Airport, Kjevik, and Solar Air Station, the latter constituting the first opposed paratrooper attack. At 8:30 p.m, the Norwegian destroyer Geir was attacked and sunk outside Stavanger by 10 Junkers Ju-88 bombers after it sank the German cargo ship MS Roda. Roda was carrying a clandestine cargo of anti-aircraft artillery and ammunition for the German invasion force. First Battle of Narvik took place between the Royal Navy and the Kriegsmarine on 9 April. The German force took Narvik and landed the 2,000 mountain infantry, but a British naval counterattack by the modernised battleship HMS Warspite and a flotilla of destroyers succeeded in sinking all 10 German destroyers once they ran out of fuel. Many Norwegian towns like Nybergsund, Ilverum, Dolsens, Mold, Kristiansand, Steinkjer, Namsos, Bod and Narvik were devastated by the German bombing, which were strategically or just terror bombs. The main German land campaign was from Oslo to mainland, where they engaged with Franco-British troops, marking the first military interaction between the Germans and the British on land. The Second Battle of Narvik happened on April 13th, which was won by the Royal Navy, the Kriegsmarine being defeated. In the land battles of Narvik between the Norwegians helped by allies against the Wehrmacht achieved a major tactical victory, but then they were overpowered by the Germans and the king moved from Mold to Troms on April 29th and the allies evacuated Dalsens on May 1st, ending the southern fight. Hegra Fortress continued its resistance until May 5th, when it fell on the German claw, being an important propaganda vehicle for the Allies. The royal family was evacuated by the British vessel HMS Devonshire and represented the country in exile. Narvik was eventually occupied by the Germans after the Allies withdrew in Operation Alphabet due to deteriorating situation in Europe. The Norwegian army in mainland capitulated on June 10, 1940, 2 months after Weserübung. Swedish and Finnish trade was dependent on Kriegsmarine, and Germany imposed treaties on both Sweden and Finland. Germany put pressure on Sweden to let unarmed troops pass the country, where a total of 2 million troops and 100,000 military railway carriages crossed Sweden. On August 19, 1940, Finland agreed to let German troops in the country, where they would grow in preparation for Operation Barbarossa. Norway remained occupied by the Germans until their surrender in May 1945, when most of the country was still occupied.